and got to hear about their unusual ministry, and did a little research, and let Kevin talk more about it. And that is the Twin Cities Prison Ministry, which has grown into a substantial organization, all because of these two got going. So what I asked Kevin to do is to share with us, of course, kind of the numbers as far as quantifying it, but also how it started, kind of what their faith journey is to get them to buy into that, if you will, and then stick with it and do what they've done. So it's an extraordinary ministry, and I don't think any of us can appreciate how many people are outside of our society and in confinement. But 95% of them will return to regular life. And with the good work of Kevin's organization and Dave's, that'll help us, and we can be engaged in this later. Well, yours, Kevin.
Thank you, Jerry. I really am honored to be here. I've learned a little bit about some of the good work your organization is doing, and God bless you. You know, it's needed. So I am on the board of the Twin Cities Prison Ministry, along with my wife and some others. And my wife and I are also co-coordinators of prison jail ministry for the Archdiocese in St. Paul and Minneapolis. So I'm going to talk about some of the opportunities in prison ministry. And if people have questions, just ask. You don't have to wait till the end, although I will leave time in the end for questions as well. So our mission is to foster an active and meaningful Catholic presence to those affected by incarceration in collaboration with all Christian and Christian prison ministry. So we are grounded in spirituality, and our partners all have a focus on Jesus and faith. It's a ministry of accompaniment and sharing God's love and mercy with those who are affected in prison. And that could be the staff, families, and other volunteers. So we have several partners. We've been blessed along the way that many partners have helped us. The first one is Catholic Prison Ministry Coalition, and that's a national level prison ministry. They train, support, and empower those in this ministry. It's kind of like a clearinghouse for prison ministry, and they have quarterly meetings with prison ministry people in archdioceses across the country where they talk about challenges and suggestions for improvement. They also have monthly webinars that touch on a different area of ministry. It could be anywhere from immigration to ministering to teens, and that's available for free webinars. I can give you their website if you're interested, but if you can Google up Catholic Prison Ministry Coalition. Mission 2911 is an organization, and it's based on Jeremiah 29:11. For God knows the good things He has in store for you. They are an organization that helps people transition when they're released from prison. You know, people need help. They need support in terms of finding a job, transportation, housing. And the most important piece that they provide is a mentor to walk with the people. And when people come to us and say we want to get involved in mentoring, we send them to this organization. We know we've worked with them for a long time, and they provide training to be a mentor. They also, if issues come up where there's a concern or a mentor has a problem, they don't know how to handle it, they can connect with this organization, and they'll walk them through what they should be doing. Jesuit Restorative Justice is a great organization that ministers to people in California in prison, and they've provided materials that we use for our Ignatian meditation activities, and also we do Ignatian retreat, a 4-hour retreat in prison, and they've provided their materials that we can use in those things. You know, Prison Fellowship has been in prison ministry for a really long time. And one of the programs that we connect with is the Angel Tree program that's purchasing gifts for families that have someone, well, parents who are incarcerated for their children, and it's purchasing gifts on behalf of the parent, and we present them, and the parent writes a little card that goes with the gift, and we make sure they understand we're presenting this on behalf of their parent. This is not us doing it, it's their parent who's carrying this out. Affirming You is connected with Prison Fellowship as well. That's a birthday card ministry where people can get together and write birthday cards to people who are in prison. That's a one-way communication. They just send the cards and that's all. And there are churches that do this monthly. They have groups get together. They pray for the people, write the cards, and send them off. There are 2-day retreats in Minnesota through Residents Encounter Christ and Chorus. Right now, those 2-day retreats are on hold. Ever since COVID, they've had to postpone them because they don't have enough staff and they're trying to get geared back up again. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to start these retreats again. And actually in Stillwater, the organizers for Residents Encountering Christ are speaking with staff at Stillwater. And there is a possibility we may be able to have one of those 2-day retreats there in the near future. We also work with the Archdiocese that provides guidance, support, and resources to support Catholic services in prisons and jails. And then also, we've developed relationships with the Minnesota Department of Corrections staff, both the leadership and also the chaplains in the various prisons. We've connected with some of the jails, which are run by the county, which is different than the prisons, which are run by the state. So there's a whole different set of rules, whole different set of conditions and people who are coordinating that for the county versus the state. And this is Father Stan Sledge, who has been involved in prison ministry for a really long time. Father Stan is on our board. He's our spiritual director in our activity. And he's also the pastor at St. Canatiri Native American Catholic Church in Minneapolis. So the basic components, like I said, by grace and over time, we found ourselves in a unique position of being able to promote, support, and educate people about prison ministry. We have those connections with the jails and the DOC. We work with them to coordinate programming in the prisons and facilities. We place volunteers in different activities. People come to us and say they want to get involved, and we talk with. My wife is really good at this. She can talk with people and kind of discern, where their interests might be and make suggestions based on conversation. And so we can place people where they feel most comfortable. We also provide training and give them guidance on how to protect themselves, protect their families, and at the same time provide faith-based programming. The other part is the education and information sharing and training for those wanting to hear more about participating in prison ministry. We coordinate workshops in different parishes. We have returning citizens come speak, and also people who conduct ministries to just explain about how important the ministry is, the value of it, how people can get involved, and the returning citizens can come give their testimony about how important it was for them. Let's see. So the why, well, Matthew 25:38, right? Whatever you did for one of these least of my brothers, you did to me. And that's not a suggestion. It's a command, right? And also, I found that I really experienced Jesus' presence you know, you've known when you've ministered to people who are hurting or at a disadvantage because of some situation in their lives, you know, you connect with the Jesus in them and they connect, it's the Spirit there. So, very astute, Jerry. 95% of the people who are in prison will be released into our community based on the Minnesota DOC statistics. And, you know, so the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops have written a paper that's still valid today about perspective on crime, punishment, and prison ministry. And part of it, they say that they suggest these reflections to assess how the system can be less retributive and more restorative. And it's about restorative justice as another way to help people who are who made a mistake and trying to recover from it. So they're called correctional facilities for a reason, right? It's rehabilitation. And the Minnesota Department of Corrections has some really great programming to help in the rehabilitation. They have substance abuse treatment that's available, mental health counseling, vocational training and education. And as a volunteer, and also the church community, we play a vital part in that rehabilitation to support people both on the inside and in their transition back into society. I just want to mention that, you know, there have been much research done in terms of the value of different prison ministry activity and visits to people in prison. And there's two studies, the Criminal Justice Policy Review and the Minnesota Department of Corrections 2011 research found that any visit reduces the likelihood that somebody's going to come back into prison by 13% and 25% for technical violations. So another crime is a felony, but technical violations, maybe somebody didn't report where they're living or they're with a probation officer and there was something that they didn't do and they end up having to go back to prison. Yeah, Jerry.
So that's just any visit, that's not a program, just anybody showing caring.
Any visit, whether it's family, whether it's a volunteer, whether it's clergy, and a visit, for me, it's defined as an activity, an event, and that's much more powerful, like the retreats or Mass, and connecting with people during Mass, but it's any visit, yeah. And, you know, recently the Minnesota Department of Corrections Performance Review states that 67% of Minnesota offenders remain free of a new felony conviction and out of prison for at least 3 years after release. So after 3 years, they're on a good path. You know, they found the things that they need to help turn things around and be able to be productive. So, you know, when people think of prison ministry, the first thing they think of is going inside and doing things on the inside, but there's a lot of opportunities available, both on the outside and inside. And I'll go through a few of these. The first one, you know, we were able to begin an Order of Christian Initiation, an adult program there's 5 people in Rush City and 5 people in Stillwater who are going to be doing this over the course of the next year. We have materials that we give to them, and we have an outside mentor, and they correspond by mail. So there's no face-to-face visits. It's just doing things by mail, and they go through the material together, and then you know, they can answer questions or talk through whatever kind of questions people may have. And at the end, the candidates will meet with the priest and, you know, just kind of discern whether they're ready or not and any final questions. And then we're hoping, well, they would get their sacrament of confirmation in prison. And Archbishop Hebda, he is so fantastic and supportive of this, and he has confirmed people in the past at Minor Lakes. He's gone in and done the confirmation, and you know, he's fantastic. The other program is our Pen Pal program. We have pen pals from across the United States, and it's the outside pen pal has to commit to 1 year, writing 1 letter a year to their person on the inside. And they send the letters directly to the person in prison. The person in prison sends it to our post office box. And our coordinator connects the person that wrote from prison with the outside volunteer, and they send the letter on to them. So there is a buffer. You know, we have to be really careful because, the one thing is, you develop these relationships with people, but in prison, could be some coercion that happens. I mean, you hear about people arguing for a place at the lunch table and people being really overbearing so, the person you may be talking with may be really a good person, but there might be somebody pressuring them for information of some kind, but we want to just make sure it's safe. And, there's certain conditions the person on the inside and outside have to agree to. There's no exchange of money. It's not a romantic thing. It's just to support each other. And, I've talked with one of the fellows in Stillwater that talks about his mentor. And, he said, it's so cool because we both love cars. And, we can talk about cars and talk about things. And he said, he's been a mentor to me. It's not just writing, he's really been a mentor to me in this relationship. So it's really a great program. Families in the Incarcerated Support and Hope Group. So, we have an organization called Fitch that we coordinate. And I just, it's important to understand that, families need support as well when they have someone in prison. They're going through emotional and economic, if the breadwinner is gone from the family, they're going through economic trouble. And socially, they're carrying the stigma. As parents, sometimes you're thinking, what did I do wrong? How did this happen? And people blame themselves. They don't want to share this information. The other statistic that's interesting is, 1 in 7 Minnesotans, or about 14%, have an immediate family member who's been incarcerated, according to a national study. And also, 13% of students in a 2022 report say they've had a parent or guardian who's been incarcerated. And in the greater Minnesota area, that number rises to 20%, where 1 in 5 children have had a guardian or parent in prison. So I just say that because you look at our pews in our churches, and there are people who are carrying this. And, it's not easy to share. People don't want to share that. But I just point that out to, just understand that. Sometimes when we do these workshops, people say, well, we don't have anybody affected by prison. Well, yes, I think you do, looking at the statistics. So, this fish group is just ministering to each other and just talking through what people are experiencing, sharing information. Sometimes if their son or loved one's about to be released, we'll have a speaker come to talk about some of the opportunities available to them, talk about some of the boundaries, or some of the things to understand when, somebody's been in prison, they're away for a while, and then all of a sudden it's, how far do we help them without enabling them, and things like that, right? So, we provide speakers that help with that. Father James. And Mission 2911 allows us to do our sessions once a month at their facility. They have a re-entry breakfast, where mentors and returning citizens come and they just share breakfast. There's a reflection and they break up into small groups. When we break up into small groups, we meet in the fish group, and it's the families and people to help people through there. I mentioned mentoring, that's through Mission 2911. We have a prayer companion group, so when we go into prison, we take prayer requests, we share them with our prayer companions, which are throughout the metro. There's probably about 125 parishes that are involved, plus separate people who are just on a prayer chain. We're looking for some help in a newsletter, so I don't know if anybody has some talent there that they like to be involved in. You know, we were doing a newsletter for a while, but there's so many other things going on, and we need somebody to help take that
I have a
up.
question. You
Yes.
use the "we" a lot. How big is your organization, direct kind of employees for you, and then the number you're helping coordinate all the
Okay.
organizations?
We have 9 members on our board, and those members, it's all volunteer. Those members are also involved in prison ministry. Like a member of the board coordinates the Angel Tree program. My wife coordinates activity for the Archdiocese. She's on the board. You know, in organizing masses, working with the chaplains and DOC. Volunteers, we must have about, I would say 800 pen pals on the outside, about 900 on the inside. That's nationwide. So the volunteers for mass and jails, gosh, I don't really have a good number. I would say there's probably about at least 20 volunteers who go in for mass. And when we do that, you know, we have a sheet you sign up on, so you don't have to go in every week. We try to have enough people so there's a lay person there with a priest for mass. And sometimes we don't have a priest because they can only commit to so many times during the month. So we'll have either a deacon or the volunteer will do a Eucharistic service and have some kind of a reflection. But it's always about the Eucharist, you know, and bringing that in and a reflection. You know, maybe Lectio Divina with the readings, or you know, there'll be something from Jesuit Restorative Justice, a meditation that they've provided that we'll read and we'll kind of react to that. So it's not a real big organization, and most of the board members are involved in the ministry. You know, my wife coordinates the workshops, she coordinates the masses and things like that. And, oh man, she does so much. It's incredible. I can't keep up with her. I don't know if that answers your
Well,
question.
kind of. Now, how many are paid employees?
We don't have any paid employees. Not at this point.
All of you are volunteer.
We're all volunteers. Yeah. Anything that people give to us, we put back into the ministry. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then these are 3 ways to participate as a parish, either through, you know, we have a holiday card program where during Easter and Christmas, you can get together and write holiday cards. There again, it's a one-way communication. We give you the names and the cards, you pray over the people, and then write a message in the card and send it off. And we've also had confirmation students and higher grade elementary students involved in this, where we, you know, present the material. We give a little bit of a talk about prison ministry, incarceration, the effects and things, and then they write a card. We do have to be careful because we read all the cards before they're sent. There was one little boy that wrote on the back of the card, he wrote his phone number on there, he said, "Call me." So, you know, you have to be really careful but, you know, the messages are really inspiring too. I mean, one little person wrote about how he loves video games, and he wrote about video games, and you can't describe what that means to people who are on the inside, and some of them don't get any mail, and to get something like that, it's just really incredible. The Angel Tree program, I talked about that. It's working through prison ministry, and prison
Is
fellowship.
that the same Angel Tree program that we may hear on radio, that they're asking for support?
It could be. I'm not sure about the radio. I've never heard it advertised on the radio, but I think Barb connected with Angel Tree, and it's really a worthwhile thing to do during Christmas time as a parish. We do it at our parish, and there's several parishes that do it. There's several parishes that do the birthday card as well as part of their parish. And these are things that we help coordinate, but there's also parishes that are working direct in prison ministry. I know Father Jim talked about when he was up in St. Stephen's, up in Anoka County. The Anoka County Jail is very close by there, and there are volunteers that go in there that we may not know about. We do coordinate with volunteers who are assigned there and work through us, but there's parishes that are doing good work just on their own, and they feel called to do it. So, there's other things. I know in Stillwater, they go in and do the rosary on Sundays in the prison. They also do Visio Divino, where they have pictures, sacred pictures, and you just react to the picture, and there's no wrong answer. What do you see in this picture? And they do that on a Saturday. So inside facilities, like I say, we have mass at 4 facilities on a weekly basis. Oak Park Heights, they allow us to go in once a month right now. We're hoping to be able to go in weekly, but right now, Oak Park Heights is the highest level of security, a level 5, and they are more stringent in some of the requirements in there. In Lino Lakes, there's actually 2 locations. It's weekly at the main prison, but then there's a minimum security location that they allow us to go in once a month. And then in Shakopee Women's, there's a weekly mass, and then there's also I forget, CIP program, where people are in a designated area. They're on a special program for advanced release, where they have certain programming available to them. We also administer the Eucharist to them in addition to the Mass. Catholic Studies, we have a Catholic Studies in Lino Lakes that meets once a week. There's a group of volunteers. They provide different information. They might do a saint of the day, where they look at a saint. They have a video where they're able to share a video about the shroud. And they have access to video there because it's a lower level facility. Actually, a lot of the people in Lino Lakes are on their way to being released, and there's a lot of program available, a lot of opportunities there for different activities. I mentioned the Ignatian retreats. So, we can't do the 2-day retreats, but we felt it was really important to have something, right? I mean, God can work in a minute, right? So let's set something up. And so we decided to set up a 4-hour retreat. They allowed us to go in for 4 hours. So we have a priest, we have volunteers that go through some material. There's a play, a skit that they do, and then some reflections. And the priest is there for reconciliation. And it's really a worthwhile thing. The last time in Lino Lakes, I think we had 20 people attend from the inside that wanted to participate. The weekend retreats, they're currently on hold, but it's promising that we'll have something I'm praying in Stillwater. They're talking with the leadership there. The Beyond Rec, so after the rec retreats, we want to maintain that community. So we have meetings afterwards with the people who have been through the retreat. We also welcome other residents who are in the facility to come, and it's a session of prayer song, and a reflection, and then we break up into small groups, and we're able to purchase instruments for Lino Lakes for them to be able to play. So now the band, they have a band together and they play during the Beyond Rec, and man, those guys just light up when you see them play, and it's so uplifting, and you know, there's nothing like song with live music, right? And it's fantastic. It's really uplifting, and it just adds a whole nother dimension to the service. In the jails, you know, so this is how God works, right? There's people that have just come to us and said, well, we've had experience in juvenile activity, juvenile programming before, and I think we'd like to get involved in that. So there were like about 4 or 5 people that came forward with that on their hearts, and so my wife contacted the Ramsey County person there, and they agreed to let us have a program in the juvenile detention facility once a week on Saturdays. So it's just, you know, I mean, how does this happen? God's blessing the work that's being done, and he's just bringing these people, and God bless my wife, she doesn't say, oh, we can't do that. She finds a way, and that's fair. You know, she was here, she'd say, don't talk about that. And then we also minister one-on-one to jails. That, again, that's run by the county versus the state, so it's a whole new organization. And, you know, the federal prisons is a different organization than the state. So we have connections with the state, and we're making connections with the jails. But we have Ramsey County, Hennepin County, Anoka County, Goodhue County, and Washington County, connections with that jail where we can provide ministries when people ask for it. And people go in regularly at Goodhue County and Ramsey County and Anoka County, where we have deacons and volunteers who come in just for one-on-one sessions. So basically, you know, we provide support, hope to those affected by incarceration, a safe way for volunteers to learn about prison ministry with guidelines for participation, and we inform the public about the value of prison ministry and share facts about incarceration. A lot of times people have something in their mind about what incarceration, and you know, we try to give them the facts about it and have them connect with the families that have been through it and kind of see the impact of that and how people have changed as a result of different programming and rehabilitation. So this is our Facebook page, our website, and any questions?
When did you get started in this?
Oh, okay.
What was the call?
You know, my wife and I did a course in social justice called through Just Faith Ministries. I don't know if you've heard of that, but this was like about 15 years ago. And it was an 8-month program, several books about social justice. You meet in small groups weekly, and in addition to the books, they provide videos, and we go through things together as a group. And one of the events is an immersion group. And at that time, my wife knew someone who was doing college retreats in Rochester Federal Prison. And she invited one of the people that is affiliated with them to come to our home and speak. And he spoke about growing up. He spoke about his time in prison. He spoke about going through the retreat while he was in prison and the miracles that happened afterwards. And it just touched me, and it was like, it was incredible. I just felt I wanted to get involved somehow. I wasn't sure then, I didn't have the time to do it then, but it just always stayed with me. And 2013 rolled around, and I'm getting ready to retire. My wife has left some of the other things that she was doing, and we talked about prison ministry, so we went and signed up for a retreat at Shakopee Women's Prison. And the first time, you know, I mean, I went through that retreat and you hear the story, how people feel going in, and then you hear their testimony as they're leaving. And it was like, where do I sign up for the next one? You know, because it's truly the spirit of work. It's such a powerful experience. And, you know, you go thinking you're going to give something, but you're being ministered to. You get it back. You know that feeling from the ministries you're involved in. It's like a gift you get back. So that's how we got started in 2013. And then our pastor at the time, Father Paul Jarvis, I don't know if anybody knows Father Paul Jarvis, but I love that man. And we don't say no to, I don't say no to Father Paul Jarvis. So he asked us, he said, you should start prison ministry in our parish. And then he walks away. And so, you know, it's like, okay, what do we do with that? So my wife and I, you know, said, yeah, let's do that. And so we started with a workshop. And I didn't realize, I learned later, he asked about 5 or 6 other people to start prison ministry. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. But, you know, so we started with a workshop, had speakers, returning citizens, people who minister to people in prison, some of the programming, and a group formed from that, because we invited other churches in the surrounding area. And we just started a prison ministry committee through that. And in 2018, we became certified as a 501(c) and started doing more related to it. And eventually, Father Deacon Tim Zinda was retiring, and he was the coordinator of prison jail ministry of the Archdiocese. And we worked very closely with him. A lot of the times he would refer people to us in trying to answer questions or find programming for them. So he said, why don't you just, you know, take this, and he recommended us to the Archbishop and powers that be to the job. And it was like, wow, what an honor this has been to be able to help in that area. So that's where we are now, and God just blesses the ministry. I talked about the juvenile detention program. Just new people come and purchasing instruments, to be the ability to purchase instruments for people on the inside to have you know, worship and praise. And we invite anybody to come to our services. You don't have to be Catholic. It doesn't matter about your belief. You know, but it's spirit-based, you know, and it gives people a chance to talk. And I mean, yeah, and we're there really. If people ask us, why are you Catholic? What is this about? You know, I share that with them. But I don't go trying to convert people. I don't know if we should be on tape or not, but, you know, I mean, it's about the love of Jesus and His mercy. And, you know, if they want to learn about the Catholic faith, we'll teach them. That's how we got the OCIA program going, because some of the residents asked us, well, I want to learn more about being a Catholic. I want to be able to do that. And so we offer that as a way for them to do it. So there are fruits of it, yeah.
You mentioned partners, and one of them is called Mission 2911.
Yes.
They're a partner. What are they? What is the 2911 referred to?
Jeremiah 29:11, where it's the Lord has great plans in store for you, and they offer a transition program. And they have the monthly re-entry breakfast that anyone's welcome to go to, and I can provide information about that if you're interested.
Can you mention, is this a partner or just is Father Stan Sledge, pastor at Secretary?
He is with our Twin Cities Prison Ministry. He's on the board.
Well, he's on the board.
He's our spiritual director in our programming. And he also participates in prison ministry.
Is he pastor there?
A pastor at St. Cafeteria.
Cafeteria Park?
Yeah, yes.
How long has he been?
Oh, gosh. I don't know how long he's been a pastor there. He's been involved in prison ministry for a really long time.
Okay, so I met someone that I thought was the pastor there. I was going to do some volunteer work, but my impression of what what was going on there, I was kind of put off. So now you say that this father stand sledge has been there for a long time, so, I can get contact information from you.
Yes, I can give you his contact. And he also does masses in prisons. He does mass at Oak Park Heights and helps us with our retreats. Barb, you had a question. You raised your hand a couple of times. I'm sorry.
Well, I would like to more information on the cars, both holiday and birthday, maybe either for, excuse me, myself or our mission outreach group
Okay. Yes, I can
or
provide.
friends. I mean, I just think that would be something
Oh,
so
okay.
many people could.
You know, I have booklets here that describe our ministry with contacts. And I forgot to give those out. So CARS is evangelical. It's Christ-based, and it's an amazing program. Residents Encounter Christ is a Catholic-based retreat. Another one. Oh, you can take as many as you want. I don't want to go home with those, so just take a pile of them if you want. But, so CARS is an evangelical-based retreat. The Residents Encounter Christ are Catholic-based, where...
Cards, C-A-R-D-S.
Oh, cards.
Birthday and.
Birthday cards.
You know, but maybe beyond that, I don't know, we'll have to
Yes,
see what.
okay. Yes, so we have, there's information. I can send you, let me write this down. I'll get your information. Well, can I send it to Jerry? Jerry, could you?
Oh, sure.
I have your email.
Yeah. We'll get it.
So can I send it to you and
Sure.
distribute it?
We'll get the newsletter.
Yeah, the card ministry. I can send you more about Mission 2911. Any other questions? Yes.
I see, ads and things that there are need for Bibles in prisons, that there's some kind of renewal going on, and,
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm hearing this.
Bibles,
As you found out.
that there's a need for Bibles in the prisons, I don't know if this.
Yes, there is, and, you know, so that's another thing that we do. We connect with the chaplains, we provide Bibles, we provide any other spiritual material they may want in the jails and the prisons. We provide breakaway rosaries, and we also send a card of how to pray the rosary, so that if people, you know, are just wanting to get involved in doing the rosary, they can understand it's more than a string of beads, you know. So whenever a person gets a breakaway rosary, they get this pamphlet, how to pray the rosary.
You mentioned you're a 501c3. You haven't asked us for money yet. But where does your funding come from?
Well, the funding comes from donors, and the Archdiocese covers costs for mass materials
Okay.
and things like that.
Mhm.
We've just been blessed. So for this year, you know, we're purchasing instruments for people in Lino Lakes. We're purchasing hymn books that we're making available to all the facilities with, you know, Catholic-based songs, plus some contemporary music, and the music for musicians to be able to play. So, you know, video cameras so that they can record some of the events that they're doing in prison at Lino. So the money is really going to be put to good use. And so it's donations and that way, yeah.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Give Kevin a round of applause. We'd like to give you an honorarium.
Thank you.
And one of our Sarah's hand makes rosaries, and this is blessed by Bishop Kenny. For either you or your ministry, hand up.
That is fantastic. Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Yes, yes.
We're kind of running a little long here, but